Monday morning, May 5th. Just want to say happy birthday to grandson Alexander the Great. Happy birthday. We had a fiesta on Saturday, Brendan, and one of those little 7-year-old kids took that stick and hit with the pinata. And that kid's going to be a baseball player. But Brendan,
Any
big.
any significance on it being Cinco de Mayo, and then you had a like?
Well, his birthday is technically today, May 5th, but we had to celebrate it on Saturday to get everybody in town. But
Okay.
and it's Cinco de Mayo, which is technically not Independence Day in Mexico. That's September 16th after the Battle of San Jacinto. But a lot to talk
It
about.
is the celebrated day
It is.
for Mexicans, and
It
I'm
absolutely.
from Colorado, and let me tell you,
Yeah.
Cinco de Mayo is a big deal.
Oh, it's a big deal.
Big deal.
It's a bad, as we say in the South, a big ass deal.
Yes.
Brendan, we got Coach Ellis Johnson on with us. Jacques Doucet, Channel 9 down in Baton Rouge, will join us here in just a moment. Also, Jake Wimberly in the second half hour from Jackson, Mississippi, talking all these football numbers, charts, graphs, matrix, lot to cover. Take a picture with your cell phone of the QR code. We're on X, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. The channel, I'll let Brendan tell you about it. You've got to watch this channel as much as you can. Content coming up every day.
Yep, it's going to be great. We've got so much more happening here on SEC Live. What we bring you so much content. We've got. I was counting our shows. You get 5 morning shows a week, Monday through Friday, right here on SEC Sidelines with Robert Brown and myself. You get Buddy Martin's show 3 nights a week, Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. You get Lauren Meadows on Tuesday nights talking all Gator sports. And then you've got AU Undercover with Ronnie Sanders from AUundercover.com, talking all things Auburn. Then you've got Scarborough Knows with Kevin Skarbinski. You've got, and that's on Thursdays, and a couple of pop-up shows in there, Rob. But you can catch all of that stuff, all of it, if you follow us on Twitter, and especially if you subscribe to this free YouTube channel right here. You will see everything that we do weekly. But check us out live, right, Rob? Because it's better that way.
Yeah, it is. And I'm telling you, at night, what I do, Brendan, is I have the Buddy Martin show on my phone, and I'm in the den watching TV, and I watch that. That's at 9 p.m. Eastern on this channel. You will get live content. And again, if there's news to go, Brendan will text me, call me, and say, let's roll, and let's get Coach Ellis Johnson on the show. I'm telling you, Coach, talking to you last night, I was at a party for one of my friends' daughter's high school graduation. She'll be going to Georgia. God, it's been that way. Like she chose Georgia over Auburn, and then her best friend's going to Clemson, and her dad was there in his Clemson Tiger pants, and we were talking about you and several people. They go, "Oh, I know Ellis Johnson. You have got a cool reputation." I said, "We wish people like him were still coaching," and it was a neat discussion yesterday with my Alabama friends, and I got a lot of them. And we were just talking about the graduation commencement exercise at Tuscaloosa, and it was pretty cool. Nick Saban's there, President Trump, and the president of the University of Alabama. And they were waiting for the president to walk out, and he looks at Nick Saban and goes, "No, you go ahead." He goes, "You've won a lot of games, a lot of games." He let Saban walk out in front of him. I mean, that just doesn't happen. But Doug Dean, who's part of our team at Rhymes, sent me a text just now. He and Frank Duffy 4 years ago on Sidelines. We started talking about, Saban being a commissioner, what we're going to have to do with NIL, because it's all about antitrust laws. And we got into talking, and Doug made a good point. Here's Saban. Tuberville flies down on Air Force One with the president at the commencement exercise at Alabama, that Auburn and Alabama coming together to try to save college football. Could peace in the Middle East be far behind? And now we bring in, Jacques Doucet is going to join us in just a second from Baton Rouge. But, Coach, before we do that, your thoughts on all that's happening. It tells me people care a lot.
Yeah, I think some people like Nick and Tommy, they're going to have to get involved And I mean, to some large degree, if they're going to get anything done up in D.C. And eventually it's going to have to come from up there.
Yeah.
That's a sad state of affairs when you got to ask them to fix something.
That's right.
But it's got to be done. And no other way they're going to be able to keep parity. And it's the greatest analogy is the way the NFL has worked it as compared to the NBA and a little bit MLB. They don't have the same setups. And I think the NFL is a better product. And I know I'm partial to football, but fan bases and numbers and so forth say it. The ratings say it.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening to college football. And we've talked about it till we're blue in the face. They're going to have to do something to put some parity and some caps and all these type of things. And it's not to hurt the kids.
Yeah.
It's to keep programs kind of on the same level.
Yeah.
If not, it's going to get way out of whack.
Yeah, it will. And you do not want to lose a generation of fans. And that's what if we don't watch what we're doing, we're going to push away people. And I listen to people, and Brendan and I talk to a lot of people every day. Rodney Orr, Tider Insider, he talks about that. The fans, there's people saying, I've had enough. We better save college football. So let's get started doing that. Let's bring in Jacques Doucet with us, WAFB, Channel 9 in Baton Rouge, down on the river. Coach Ellis Johnson's with us. And I told you, Jacques, a couple of weeks ago after Easter Sunday, you said, my dad was out on the levee speaking Cajun French with Coach Ed Orgeron. And that was, I've got a lot of two guys in my hunting club from Lake Charles, and, Blake Kleinpeter. Now, that's not exactly a Cajun name, but he's a Cajun. There's no question. And Tanner Hill, his family, they own the Stein home and yard, home and lumber. They are, man, we cook stuff like beef tongue with mock jus gravy. We cook some great stuff up here. My favorite food in the world, as much as I love barbecue, is Cajun food. But Jacques, welcome aboard. Let's talk some college football and Saban, Tuberville. A lot of people excited about maybe we're going to do something to save the game we love so much.
Well, you got to fill me in. I enjoyed the weekend. I had a good time this weekend. I'm getting back to work. So Saban and Tuberville, it's still funny for me to see Tommy Tuberville on television as a politician. I grew up with him as a football coach, But yeah, I mean, I think the SEC media days are coming up here in May when they go down to Destin and they get their big check and everything. And I'm sure there'll be a lot of discussion about the current state of collegiate athletics and what direction we're heading.
Yeah, and what happened was it was the commencement exercise at Alabama was Thursday or Friday. So Tuberville rode down with the president, and then Saban and the three of them got together. Now they're talking about executive order maybe to do something, but it's all going to get down to, like Doug Dean says, the Supreme Court, strike it down. But Coach Johnson's right, too. We don't need Congress involved. But I think people are saying if Texas has unlimited funding, the Permian oil basin, 4.2 million barrels a day, and they get 2/3 of that money every year from the state legislature, and then A&M gets the other third. Why don't we encourage all the other schools in Texas to file a suit to say, we want some of that? That might slow down NIL.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for years, as Texas was kind of underachieving, I guess, people would always bring that up. They've got so much money out there. What's the deal? Why can't they win at a higher level? And, why is there some of their recruiting so lowly ranked at times when they've got the best state and the most talent in the country, right? At the high school level. Louisiana, we might have it per capita. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's really a turn on for many people to hear about how much money is going in the rosters. And, we had Angel Reese here on Friday who did great things at LSU. There was a WNBA exhibition game. She came and played in with the Chicago Sky. They played against Brazil. They had a nice crowd. And afterwards, they're talking about, LSU gave me the chance to build my brand. And I got this many followers after I left and stuff. And that's all great. But I just don't think most people, that's not why they gravitate to athletics. They, selfish reasons. How does it make me feel? Do I feel good when LSU wins? And, what are you doing for the team and so forth? So, you and I have talked about this many times. The whole concept of team and loyalty and all that has gone out the window at the moment. It's all about how much can I play? How much can I make? I mean, I don't care about facilities anymore. I don't care about, can we win a national championship? I don't care about tradition. I just care about, how much can I get?
Yeah, I agree. Coach, along the line of what Jacques Doucet is saying there, I was told one time, if money can solve it, it's not really a problem. Texas has always had more money. You've been in coaching 43 years. Can you have a room full of J.R. Ewings like the old Dallas TV show and nothing gets done because everybody wants to be in charge? I think that's a real problem.
Yeah, and it did help. That happens everywhere, not just Texas. And of course, when the bigger the money, I guess the bigger the argument, or the bigger the hammer somebody thinks they can bring. But that's everywhere. And sometimes we sit here and we talk about who hired that guy. Why would they hire that coach? Well, who hired the AD that hired the coach? And who hired the AD? What president hired the AD? And then it goes all the way to the top. You say, well, what damn board would have brought that president in? And so, even these things we talk about down on the level of the coaching aspect, somebody hired them and somebody's responsible for it. And when it gets right down to it, it goes right back to the board of trustees.
Yeah.
And some of them are really, really good at what they did to get rich and become powerful, but they're not very good at running a school or running a football program.
Yeah.
So that's what happens, I think, in many cases. But, Texas has they've had some pretty good teams over the years.
Yeah. No, they have. They're like the 5th winningest program in history. Jacques, I don't know if you can answer this question, but I'm glad to see this guy back. Blind Squirrel Sports, diehard Georgia fan. I don't know. Do you know? He said, what do you think of the coaching job Wes Johnson is doing at Georgia? Talking about baseball. Yeah, because it's, the SEC baseball is really good.
Well, I'll just tell him real quick. Wes was my next door neighbor. He lived in my neighborhood here for, I guess, only about 10 months because he was only the LSU pitching coach one season and then moved on to Georgia. I think his house is maybe still for sale, or not a great market at the present time to try to sell a house with interest rates and all that. I don't want to bore you with that, but I enjoyed covering Wes. Great guy. I'm just looking. I mean, they're 15-9 in the SEC, which I think is the same record LSU's got at the moment. I don't know if they played the teams LSU's played and whatnot, but I think that was always interesting. The fact that he took his first head coaching job, I think he was 53 or something like that. He had never been a head coach until that moment. And so always been an assistant coach. And I think LSU is Jay's had 3 pitching coaches in 4 years. So that job is kind of turned over. I think Nate Yeske's the first one he's had to go back-to-back seasons. So Wes appears to be doing a nice job. I think they made the Supers last year, if I'm not mistaken. So it appears they're doing a nice job in Georgia. I mean, I remember way back when, it's been, I guess 35 years, Georgia was the national champion in baseball in 1990.
Yep.
And I think LSU won their first one right after in 1991.
Yeah. Speaking of LSU, and I want to get into this with you and Coach Johnson, Garrett Nussmeier. This is his 4th or 5th year at LSU.
It's his 5th.
5th, okay. He's going to experience, I'll make a bet with you, of all the guys on that roster, and I think he's going to have a big year. I think Garrett Nussmeier is going to have, over his lifetime, greater earnings from just staying for 5 years at LSU on his NIL than some of his teammates who were getting a quick check and it's gone real quickly. I really do. And I think that's what I thought NIL was supposed to be. What's he like when you're around him?
He's a great kid. I mean, he is not a modern day in terms of, hey, they bought this guy to come play. They gave him a bunch of money to come to LSU. I mean, he grew up loving LSU, I think, to an extent. From Lake Charles. I know his dad, Doug Nussmeier, now coaching with the Saints, had coached at Alabama. I think Garrett was a little kid when Alabama came to LSU and tore their heart out in 2012 when TJ Yeldon caught the swing pass at the very end and ran to the end zone. Yeah. And Nussmeier, Garrett had an Alabama jersey and was rooting for Alabama that day. But you think about the dynamics of Garrett Nussmeier. So he comes in kind of right off the heels. There was a season in between, but he's following up Joe Burrow, who's the first Heisman Trophy winner since Billy Cannon in 1959, and certainly the first at quarterback. He comes in, and then some guy named Jaden Daniels, who we didn't really know much about or whatever, he comes in while Garrett's on the team, wins the Heisman. So Garrett's not only following up one, but he's following up two Heisman Trophy winners at his position. So, a lot of pressure on these kids these days with social media and the spotlight. He has done very well in the NIL space. I think even when he wasn't playing, when LSU went to that Cheez-It Bowl, he was getting he stayed in the Cheez-It room where it was like a Cheez-It bed and a Cheez-It couch and all this bright stuff. And so I think he's done pretty well in NIL. I don't know how much money he's made. I think he's kind of private about that. And not put, hey, I made $500,000 or whatever I made on whatever. So he cares. He wants to do well. I think he did a B+, B- job last year. Wants to clean up the interceptions, but LSU needs to help him too with a running game to kind of push the defense back a little bit.
Yeah, Coach Johnson, talking about Brian Kelly, and this is, I guess, this is his fourth year at LSU. You coached against LSU. That is a program that is so rich in tradition. 3 different coaches this millennium have won national championships. What's your take on LSU going into this season? Because they got a 5th-year quarterback, and I don't think anybody else in college football can say that at the same school.
Well, I think that's going to be a huge advantage for them to have that kind of leadership. It kind of some glue in the locker room. The days of the portal guys, so many fresh faces coming in and out. When you got a quarterback that's been a member of your program for that long, and hopefully it'll go well. Like the Graham Mertz thing, Florida didn't, and they had to end up going to the young guy. But I think they've got a huge advantage. Now, Jock needs to keep talking about their depth chart and give me some info now, because my son's at Clemson, and they got to open up with them. But I tell you what, guys, that should be the best opening game this season.
Yeah.
Because of Klubnik and Garrett Nussmeier. I mean, you're talking about 2 of the best quarterbacks in the country.
I agree with that.
They're both supposed to be vastly improved over some different things in the roster. And that's going to be a good one. I think Clemson's got him at home, which would be a big help for him. But that's that could really make a lot of difference for which way they go. A lot of LSU people feel like they've stubbed their toe on their openers over the previous, I guess, 3 years they've lost their opener.
5.
5 years they lost it.
Yeah.
But they keep playing extremely tough teams for opening games. And they got another one again this year. But Clemson got spanked last year in their opener against Georgia. And so that's going to be a great game, I think.
Yeah.
Coach, I got people in my neighborhood that normally make every season opener, and they've thrown their hands up. They said, we're not going this year. We've had enough. We've lost too many. We lost 5 in a row. We've been to Florida State, Vegas, New Orleans, all these places. So I think in this case, it's not one of those neutral site things. So I think LSU only gets like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 tickets. And from what I hear, they're up in the upper deck. So August 30th, it's going to be nice and sticky too in Clemson, South Carolina. So I don't know how many LSU fans are going to make the trip, but yes, it's going to be, I call those kind of like a Daytona 500 game, the big one out of the chute, huge game to start the year. And I don't know what the spread is. I've seen 2.5, either LSU favored or underdog but yeah, I mean, Brian Kelly, there's been he can talk, and that's great to hear him speak. But I think, it's the old Missouri thing. Show me. And LSU fans want to see a 1-0 start for once.
Yeah. I tell you now, when I was at Carolina and also when I was at Alabama, when LSU came to town, I don't know how many tickets we gave them, but they brought about 20 to 50,000 people. I've never seen so many luxury buses, in that area. And they'll probably be here regardless of whether they get enough tickets or not.
Yeah.
Well, it was pretty cool. Dennis Dodd was on the show Friday morning with us, and he said about Clemson, he was up there, and there was an older couple in their big RV luxury, $1 million bus. They were just camped out in front of what he calls the Death Star, their football only complex. He goes, that's just the way people are in the South. They will literally stop and camp just to look at it and marvel. And same thing at LSU. I mean, I got a lot of LSU friends, and if you go to any Catholic church in Memphis, you can have a crawfish boil. I mean, we had one over here at the farm last Sunday. Jacques, I look at that program, and I think in the last 10 years, they've put more guys in the NFL than anybody. They've got, in the last 10 years, 16 wide receivers from LSU in the NFL.
Yeah, it was always LSU, Alabama. You would look like, LSU maybe had 45 players. Bama had 44. Bama's got 48. LSU's got 4. It was just always those two programs seem to have the most guys in the league. And certainly there was a time where LSU was not viewed as being a team that really was prolific in throwing the football. So to have that many wide receivers in the league, says something. LSU had guys like Ruben Randall and obviously Beckham and Jarvis Landry and those guys, make it into the league. Even guys who didn't catch a whole lot of passes, they were good on special teams and made tackles and made it there. So yeah, LSU's been a football factory in terms of creating talent. They perhaps have not been as consistent overall as they should be. As we talked about, they've only made the playoff one time since they started this new college playoff deal. But they have won 3 national championships in the last 22 years. Nick Saban's got a pretty big hand in 2 of those 3 in terms of winning the first one as the head coach in 2003 and then leaving Les Miles a pretty loaded roster to win one in 2007. Les Miles could have won another one in 2011. They got shut out by Bama, a team that they beat during the regular season. So a lot of harsh feelings about that, about Bama getting the mulligan or getting another shot. But, 2019 and Coach O, that stood on their own. So, I think a lot of fans are like, oh, we need to make a playoff. There's 12 teams getting in. We're paying our coach $10 million a year. Just a real interesting situation. How much pressure is actually on Brian Kelly when you're in a 10-year contract that's 90% guaranteed? Yeah. Is there really, hey, you better get your act together. And what? So maybe all this money to go away.
We're going to make you go away and give you $70 million. You better, yeah. Well, here's the great moments in the history of idiot savants. I'm going to throw this one out. From 1948 to 1997, Michigan, the winningest program in the history of college football, won national championship. They went 49 years between them. Then they won it again, obviously, in 2023. You just mentioned LSU did it 3 times in the last 22 years. Coach, you look at programs where it matters. That's what matters most, isn't it?
It does, but I think it have to be realistic. There's only one trophy, and you got 130-something schools now. Not all of them have a legit shot.
Yeah.
But that's kind of unlike the NFL, that's kind of a pipe dream when you start talking about we're going to win the national championship. It's hard to do. I remember when I was at Alabama, we won that one in '92, and they had that run back in the 60s, 70s.
Yeah.
And it was a drought, and then we won it. And you say, okay, we got it going again. Didn't win another one until Nick got there. And we came close on a few, but it's hard. It's really hard. Of course, that was pre-playoff days.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, I just interviewed Kim Mulkey the other day. We were talking about how hard it is to win a championship. And she's like, take a look at Gino Auriemma. He just won one 5 years ago that said he was washed up, and it's been 10 years in between the 2 that he's won. He's won 12,
Yeah.
Kind of felt like Tiger Woods winning the Masters one last time, Gino winning that championship. But, Kim Mulkey, she's a 4-time national champion, but it took 21 years to win 3 at Baylor. And she says, we're fortunate to win those 3. It's just everyone's got to stay healthy. Ball's got to bounce your way. You can be in the hunt, but to actually get over the top is very, very difficult.
Yeah. Jacques, one more question before you go, and I appreciate so much you joining us. Love having you on here. For the LSU fans out there that are, Brian Kelly's not going anywhere, but his staff, how do you grade this staff for the guys you have? And Coach just alluded to it, the depth chart. You're there every day. How deep is this LSU team? And you feel really good about them? Obviously, you start off at Clemson, but that'll keep everybody motivated going into game 1. You're not going to have any focus problems.
Yeah, I'm sure Coach Johnson can tell stories about, when a new head coach takes over and they haven't had success, what is the dance between clearing house and getting rid of all these people, and maybe I should keep a couple of them behind. And I think Coach Kelly, when he came in, for the most part, he got rid of everybody except for Brad Davis, who was the offensive line coach. Now, in the process, he has brought back Corey Raymond, coaching the defensive backs. He has brought back Blake Baker, who was the linebackers coach, to now be the DC. He's brought back some, young lady by the name of Kiva Soil Cormier, who was working in the office. She went to Baylor with Aranda. Now she's working in NIL space. So there's been some people that have left that he's brought back. And I think the staff is a really good one. I mean, I think I don't know if they were blindsided or not, but when they hired Bo Davis to coach D-line from Texas, I don't think the idea was, hey, you're going to coach 1 year and then leave us for the New Orleans Saints, which is what happened.
Yeah.
So they bring Kyle Williams, who's just played 13 years in the NFL, 6-time Pro Bowler, was on LSU's 2003 National Championship team. He's going to coach the D-line now. And your offensive coordinator, I think, Joe Sloan, he's a young guy. I think he's got to prove himself a little bit after Mike Denbrock went back to Notre Dame last year. I mean, there was some things that maybe didn't go as well as they would have liked. So I think the staff overall is Frank Wilson on the staff. He's been around since Christ was a carpenter here in Louisiana.
That's right.
And whatnot. So, overall, I think the staff's about as good as it can be. Now, how much work is the staff doing? Is the head coach, working as hard as he should be working? I think that's sometimes a discussion point. Brian Kelly likes to play golf, Rob. So there's been some talk about that, but we'll see.
I would dare say that during his golf games, there's a little football talk going on. People act like these guys playing golf is really work swinging a stick. I mean,
a lot of deals made on the golf course. I hope maybe some
all the deals, Jacques, all the deals on the golf course. I'm an old caddy. I heard it all, right? Jacques, I got to ask you one question. And this is a hard-hitting news question, so I really want you to dig deep here. Theo Vaughn is a influencer and podcaster. He's very popular these days, and he is a huge LSU guy. And he's at all these recruiting events and things like that. Do you know who he is?
Video Vine?
No, Theo Vaughn.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Theo Vaughn. Yeah. So, how much of it? How much does that matter? Do you think in the world of recruiting or even NIL or transfer portal? Does that make a difference?
Well, I hate to admit, that we're all getting a bit older, and some of the stuff we're just not in tune with. I've never done TikTok or some of those things. I think I'm too old to do that stuff. But certainly, the way people consume stuff, like platforms right now. Used to be we grew up, we sat around the TV, watched Dan Rather at 5:30, and then watched the local news at 6, and that's what we did. We ate dinner, and but now, a lot of times people are not sitting in front of the TV at the precise time you're on, and so forth. They watch it on their phones. They watch it when they're ready to watch it. The days of somebody sitting and watching. I mean, Dave Letterman, people would sit and watch that show for an hour. I don't know how many people sit and watch Jimmy Kimmel for an hour, and they watch little. Skits and whatnot. So I think that a guy like Theo Vaughn, that's how people are consuming things now. And certainly he is big, and I think it's a huge positive for LSU that a guy with that kind of platform and reach talks about LSU as much as he does and promotes them as much as he does. I mean, a guy like that is definitely a lot more influential than a square like me. Pat McAfee, is a controversial subject. Sometimes it's like catering to the, Beavis and Buttheads out there to use a reference from 30 whatever years ago. But then I turn to my guy and say, these young guys, they think he's it, and I'm boring, So, it changes every day, and it's changed so much in the last 5 years in terms of how people consume their product and their sports talk.
And it really is really change in the next 5 years. That's for sure. So we're in a renaissance, I think, right now. So
we got to be on the horse or fall off the horse. That's in this renaissance. We'll see.
That's right, man.
Jacques, tell people how they can follow you. And you're not a square. You're cool as hell. I mean, you run 24 years. Squares,
Rob.
Just 3 times. Yeah. Well, we are squares. You're right. But I mean, Theo Vaughn, influencer. That was him. Brendan put that picture up on the sidelines at an LSU game. But look, there's a lot of people. There was a guy in Memphis we heard about because Jimmy Sexton's office was on the floor below me. Worldwide Wes. That was an influencer that Calipari used for a long time. But Jacques, thank you so much for sharing time, and let people know how they can follow you, and look forward to having you on next week.
All right, WAFB.com, Jacques Talk on YouTube, and very nice being with you guys this morning. Coach Johnson, good to see you, and we'll talk to you later.
Jacques Talk. We'll be watching it. Thank you so much. All right, let's go to Jake Wimberly. And before we do it, want to say something about Winter Timber Outdoors, folks, in Athens, Alabama. That is on the top of the state, right next to Huntsville. Hey, all your outdoor life, your shooting sports, everything, hunting, fishing, they got you covered. Open every day of the week, and they're growing throughout the Southeastern Conference. All your gear, Sitka, Dixie decoys, duck camp, everything, head to toe, snake boots. Turkey season's wrapping up here in the next week and a half, but they've got all your turkey calls, ground blinds, turkey decoys, your loads, your handguns, rifles. They got everything. They got you covered. Let them know you heard about it on this show. Rete Masimara, GPS BuyGo, buy one, get one. And again, all the clothing, all your coolers. You're going to the beach, load up, and the St. Nick's knives, they've got them. And they got a 13,000 square foot store under construction on University Drive down in Auburn, Alabama. Brendan, that was interesting what you said, though, about those influencers. And, Coach, speaking of that, you remember Snoop Dogg used to be at practice with Pete Carroll in Southern Cal. And I've grown to have a lot of respect for that guy because he's a genius. Him and Martha Stewart together, that's like Robert Plant and Alison Krauss.
That'd be like me. That'd be like me and Jake Wimberly going out and partying.
Hey, listen,
very
Jake,
similar,
right?
Very
Same
similar.
thing, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm Martha, and you're Snoop.
That's right.
I'm far from that, but I could give it a go try.
I mean, hey man, Martha's kind of BA. Hey, Jake Wimberly, smartest
Hi,
guy I
guys.
know in
Coach.
sports. How are
How
you,
are
sir?
y'all? I'm good.
Coach Johnson's on here with us, and I was telling him last night. I said, Brendan and I, when Jake comes on, there's lots of charts and graphs and trends. You are to college football what Kramer Mad Men is to watching stock market charts.
Wow.
Let's talk some SEC college football and what you see happening and bounce the ball around because media days start July 14th in Atlanta. So that's a little over 2 months away, and it's going to be here before you know it. Don't wait till the night before media days to study because you'll get caught.
No, you're absolutely right. And we've talked a lot last week. And of course, we had you on last week to talk about the SEC and, kind of who is the dark horse. That's what we were talking about last week is which team could be a potential dark horse? How do you even define a dark horse? I mean, is it a team that, that is kind of sitting in the, won 5-6 games last year? I don't think so. Is it a team that's kind of sitting on the fray? And, Rob, we talked about, teams like Florida, South Carolina, kind of taking, you can really kind of split, the top end and the bottom end off the league. Take Texas and Georgia off the top. They're going to be right there. Who knows if they'll win it, but they'll be the favorites. They are the favorites. Take, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Arkansas, and, a couple more and probably split them off. And then you've got a sandwich right in the middle that is full of teams that, are they going to be 7-win teams, 6-win teams, 9-win teams? And of course, all those teams play each other. So, who is going to be the dark horse? Which team could potentially, be in the conversation in November? And I think it's a good conversation to have.
Coach Johnson, jump in this conversation. You talk about, I like that dark horses, and it's so hard to know what a depth chart is right now. And with the portal, even though it's stopped, there's still stuff going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, I thought that was a perfect description of what it's going to look like next year. And without saying it in the same words, I totally agree. I think the 2 or 3 or 4 teams they don't have a chance, but they mess up somebody else's season, but they don't have a chance. And you've got 2 or 3, and they're going to be in the hunt, and they may not win it, but they're going to be up there. And then you got the guys in the middle. I don't know if I was going to pick the dark horse, I'd probably go with Carolina. A little more familiar with those guys over in this area. And it all going to come down to whether they can replace – they've turned into a portal type thing now. They're a lot like Florida State. And so they've got a ton of new faces, especially on defense.
Yeah.
But the quarterback, if he's playing well, is as good as anybody in the country. And he'll be worth, 2 or 3 wins for him this year in big games. So I guess I would go with them. I don't know if I consider Florida a dark horse. I think they're a really good football team. I guess when you look at their record last year, if they're back in the hunt this year, you'd say, well, that's a dark horse. But I think Florida's legit.
Yeah. Jake, speaking of Texas, we there's something's going to happen one way or the other, but they're amassing a lot of money, but they've always had a lot of money. That's not all it takes. I want to flip it and say, what about Texas A&M? Are they stuck at 8-5, 9-4? Because in this millennium, they've only won double digits one time. That was 2012 with Johnny Manziel, lightning in a bottle when they went 11-2.
I think they're really, really close. Excuse me. If you go back even to Jimbo Fisher, now obviously none of those guys are there anymore, but they always recruited really good talent.
Oh yeah.
Now there was some a cycle there where, if you go back and remember, I think it was 21 or 22, they were deemed that class at Texas A&M was deemed the best ever as far as, recruiting rankings, excuse me, is concerned. But when you look at this talent on the roster that Texas A&M that they have right now, I mean, last year, we forget they were in the hunt up until the last 2 or 3 weeks. Actually, until the last week, they had an opportunity to play their way, or last 2 weeks, play their way into the SEC championship game. So, if Marcel Reed, and that's one of the things, that it's going to be interesting to see when you look at the quarterback depth around the country. And when when I'm talking about quarterback depth, I'm talking about conference quarterback depth. So my numbers show that the ACC probably has the best quarterbacks as a collective. That doesn't mean that, they're the best teams, just the best signal callers. Then you go to the Big 10, or the Big 12 and the Big 10, and then the SEC is going to be at the back end of that by just a little bit, just because of so many guys that we don't know how they're going to perform over the course of a year. And one of them is at Texas A&M and Marcel Reed, who looked really good against LSU last year. Really kind of had a coming out party there, but then kind of settled out. I know that they like him a lot down there, talking with some of the people down there. But Texas A&M, I think, is a team that, they're a team that could be right there. I mean, they've been right there. And you look at their schedule. I mean, watch week 3 when they go to Notre Dame. Obviously, they got, Notre Dame got the win over Texas A&M last year. They've got to go up there. And then they get a bye week, and then they take on Auburn. So that first month of the season, we'll know a lot about them. But I think it comes down to, one, can they continue to play defense the way that they have over the last several years? And then offensively, what does that identity look like with Reed?
All right. I meant to call a timeout, but I didn't want to interrupt you. You were rolling. You talk about the quarterbacks of the ACC could be the best group top to bottom in college football. How quickly things can change. I mean, I saw somebody buying flowers and looking at headstones for the ACC last week. It's not going to happen. And I think Clemson is a big reason for that. And Coach can add a little personal color to that because his son's on the team there as a PWO, and he gets to go to practice. You are lucky, Coach. I mean, that's a great way to spend an afternoon. But you heard what he said about the quarterbacks. In the SEC, there's a lot of change, and it can slip away real fast, can't it?
Yep. And building off of what he said, I think that if you look at it, every school in the SEC just about has had a big-time quarterback come through and play well for them for 2 or 3 years. But you look at A&M, and in spite of all the great talent they keep recruiting each year, they've not recruited a quarterback that's turned out to be the guy you build around. It's constant musical chairs. And I don't know whether Marcel Reed will be the guy or not. But every time you turn around, they've got a quarterback that plays 1 year, 2 years, gets jerked halfway through the season or whatever. That's the one thing. And Manziel, he was a great player. Unfortunately, I had to coach against him 2 years. But he was a great player, but he wasn't really an NFL guy.
No.
But they haven't had that guy. I mean, you talk about the guy LSU had last year and some of these others. I can't sit here and rattle them off, but that's been the missing ingredient. And no matter what other talent you got, if you've got a problem at quarterback and they're not playing consistently, they'll lose games for you. And there's nothing you can do about it. I remember 1 year when I was coaching, I think it was at Alabama, we had a lot better football teams in the SEC than the ACC did. draft picks, everything was tilted to us. But they had a run for about 3 or 4 years. They had all the great NFL quarterbacks come through there. And I can't remember the exact years or rattle them off, but it was a big, big deal because occasionally they would meet in a bowl team in a bowl game and they would win simply because they had a quarterback that was so much better. And it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Jake.
Hey, Jake, we're such numbers guys, you and I, because we're total dorks. Which I love, by the way. So I don't
Y'all
really
are
care.
very smart. Is what you are.
Yeah, we're
I'm
not very.
intelligent.
We're not, and we're not nice. Really, not that nice either. It's okay because that's the mark of
Genius.
just people who pay attention to things that other people don't pay attention to. That's all I'm going to say. So, Jake, looking at the numbers, and I know you probably love AI as much as I do. So I've been playing with 2025 numbers, and we're talking dark horses, right? And so I don't know where you're winding up at, but I'm getting a whole lot of Mississippi State Bulldogs looking like a pretty good team next year. Based off some of the data, right? Returning 18 starters from 24, a lot of transfer portal success, some good coaching. Am I crazy? Am I crazy? Am I just listening to AI too much, or is this a real deal?
Define good for Mississippi State.
Well,
I mean,
better than they were last year, right?
probably. I mean, are they a 6 or 7 win team? Probably not. Are they better? They better be. They should be. Talking to people in Starkville, they at least look like a defensive football team that looks like an SEC team getting off the bus. I would be curious to know Coach Johnson's take on returning starters. I'm not a big returning starters kind of guy, and the reason being is because we've seen years where Vanderbilt and they had 18 returning starters and they would win 2 ball games, but where Alabama, for instance, or Georgia, they may return half of their starters, but they have recruited at such a high rate that they can plug and play some of those guys. So, Coach, what's your take on returning starters? I mean, I know as a coach,
Yeah,
you'd love to have,
especially in these days, Jake. I agree with you 100%. Plus, the fact it's like the old story. We were sitting one time. I'm not going to say where we were coaching at the time. We said the good news is we got 18 of these guys back. The bad news is we lost 8 games with them last year.
right?
So it can be a little misleading. Now, I do think this. I think if you've got a returning, proven, really good quarterback that comes back in your early part of your season, you got a huge, huge advantage. But past that, I tend to agree 100% with you.
Well, the chart that I look at is my friend Stuart Carter, Stat Tiger. I've followed him for 20 years. It's the number of guys on your roster that have started 10 or more games, 20 or more games, or in some cases 30 or more games. And if you've got a lot of guys that have started 20 and 30 games, that is a really big deal. But in today's environment, with all of the shift, it's where did they start? Where did they win those games versus have they won them all at the same school? So yeah, I think so. The quarterback, he's the one guy that touches the ball on every play. And I remember when Pat Dye was asked when Cam Newton was at Auburn, is he the best player ever? And he was kind of like, well, as great a player as Bo Jackson was, Cam Newton touches the ball every snap. And why some schools can't seem to, go emphasize getting a quarterback is kind of a surprise, isn't it, Jake?
Well, it is, but I don't think it's for lack of effort, right? I mean, there's so many quarterbacks out there, and it's just what type of quarterback are you looking for in your system? If you talk to different coaches, are you looking for a prototypical guy that can, he's a guy that can read a defense and go 1, 2, 3 in a progression? Is he a guy that, can pull it and tuck it and go? I mean, obviously we've gotten to the point where most teams, even down at the high school level, you see it here in the state of Mississippi, especially in the bigger classifications, 5, 6, 7A football in high school, most teams are trying to get you to play 11 on 11. They want a quarterback that can run it and can throw it. But it's just, the evaluation side and what those quarterbacks look like. I think it's very tough sometimes for some of these coaches, especially you take the top ones off the top, the ones that are, the bona fide 5-star guys. Yeah. Most of those guys are going to pan out, but then trying to find the right fit I mean, just look at Mississippi State. I mean, what they've gone through over the last several years. Coach referenced Texas A&M. I think that's got to be one of the harder positions, I would assume, for coaching staffs to evaluate.
Well, we're going to have to try to get Marcel Reed on the show because, Coach, our intern Oakley McFerrin, that was his quarterback at NBA. And I say, what was he like? He goes, he was really good. His dad, I think, coached at, I think, Tennessee State. So he's a coach's son. But Oakley was one of his wide receivers. Man, you're right, though. It's so hard to get that's why LSU is getting a lot of attention, I think, everybody, because they got a returning quarterback, and he stayed even when Jaden Daniels came. He didn't quit. I mean, Coach, I'd like to have him as my quarterback.
Yeah, I'm telling you. I mean, I hate to go back to it, but that Clemson game could be a heck of a football game.
Yeah.
You got those two quarterbacks. Both teams, the running game last year sort of abandoned them at the wrong times. And they both have put a lot of emphasis on that, and hopefully have shored it up. And then Clemson had the big turn. You've got a new coordinator coming in with Tom Allen. And I think, it's going to be a heck of a football game, and a lot of it's a quarterback situation.
Yeah. I want to go look at Missouri real quick. Now, Missouri did something last year in basketball, not this most recent season, but the year before. They went 0-19. They even lost in the tournament, okay? Right now, they're 0-24 in baseball in the SEC. Now, I don't think that's going to be a good trivia question going forward. What schools had a basketball team and a baseball team go winless for an entire year? But their football team's pretty damn good. Eli Drinkwitz is always going to have them 8 or 9, and then maybe they can get into double digits. But they got to replace a lot of people, Jake. They've got an NIL program that's kind of cool. If you commit, you're an in-state kid, NIL starts paying you while you're in high school. How'd you like to be the parents of that kid making $500,000 or $1 million when he's in high school? Get out of bed. You got to go to school. Why?
No, you're absolutely right. Look, he's done a great job as a head coach there. They've recruited well. I still think that this year, when you look at some of the turnover that they've had, particularly, obviously quarterback losing Luther Burden III to the NFL, and they've had some attrition on that team. And this is a team that, by some people's marks, underachieved last year. A lot of people had them as a playoff team last year. I didn't really buy them as a playoff team. I know we talked about that last year. Yeah. I've got them kind of fading back this year. I've got them around 6-6 or 7-5. Their schedule is very manageable early. They'll play Central Arkansas, Kansas, Louisiana Lafayette. They'll play South Carolina and UMass before the bye. But after that, I mean, it really ramps up the rest of the way. Alabama, Auburn on the road, at Vanderbilt, Texas A&M. They'll go to Oklahoma and have to go to Arkansas. So, I mean, I think he's done a good job there. I just see this kind of as a season for them to kind of take a step back this year.
And looking at this schedule, guys, I mean, it's just a flip of what you did last year. But there's really nowhere to hide in this league, is there, Coach?
No. It's, I almost have to laugh out loud every time you get your preseason magazines and they talk about, well, they've got this team's got the 6th hardest schedule in America this year. No shit, they're playing the SEC.
Yeah.
But they keep talking about why it's so hard. It's hard because of the conference they're in. It doesn't matter who they play outside the conference. But it is difficult. You can't have a week where you'd like to let 3 kids, lay out and get some things healed up. I mean, they're constantly fighting through injuries and fatigue and so forth. It's just the physicality of it just really drags as the season goes along. And it's tough to play at that level every week.
It really is. Yesterday, it was, I don't know if y'all saw this, but my wife Audrey saw something on X. It was about a guy making a sort of a parody. He goes, man, when I was a kid growing up, when you went to school, it looked like the waiting room at the emergency room or at the VA hospital. You had guys with casts on their arms and broken leg casts and eye patches from getting poked in the eye. You don't see that with kids anymore. We were talking about that yesterday. We drove from Parkin into Memphis to a party yesterday afternoon, 32 minutes. Didn't see a single kid on the way over out in the yard playing. I think these kids today are a lot of them, and they're so specialized in they're not playing multiple sports. Jake, you've got kids playing ball, and you do too, Coach. And Brendan, you got competitive soccer, which I think leads to more injuries than I don't know. It's tough, man. When it's the kids are playing, they're specializing too much. They're not taking enough time. Even Dr. Andrews said, take a few months off. No, not sit around and do nothing, but get into that injuries, man. You got a lot of guys that if they're I don't know, you got to be able to go. I mean, and if you're hurt, you're hurt, Jake.
No, you are, and you're right. We don't see a lot of the injuries. Excuse me, the cast and cast on the arm, cast on the leg, kind of stuff. I think that's because, as you said, a lot of guys aren't and girls aren't outside playing anymore. They're not, running ditches and getting off in the woods and doing things that we all used to do.
Yeah.
But also I think the game is played. From a football standpoint, we know this. It's safer. It's a safer game now. It's not everybody crammed in between the hashes and people just getting after each other, inside a box. Now it's played wide open. It's basketball on grass. So the game has changed, and luckily some of the injuries have gotten better as well.
Yeah, it's not that I'm advocating. Nobody wants to see people get hurt. It's just different. Like,
Right.
and Coach, what I'm saying, and Brendan, is we're all parents. Man, I mean, broken collarbone. You just, it's different. It's complete. It's just a different world. And I had Tracy Rocker told me this one time, who played at Auburn. He was coaching there back in 2010. I was speaking to him at an alumni meeting, and he said the kids, when you and I were growing up, Rob, we were outside playing all day, running from the cops, from each other, from our parents, climbing fences, climbing trees, playing anything with a ball. We would play. He goes, today, these kids are sitting around the house all day playing with a screen, and they're getting dropped off, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them, 10 minutes before practice, and they've got to go from air conditioning to this heat. He goes, so when we get them in college, we got to reprogram them. Now, I will say this about soccer. It helps with every sport you play, like track and field, on footwork. But the guys tend to shift out of there in about 5th or 6th grade, whereas the girls are playing a lot longer. And I think conditioning, I just think we've gotten away from conditioning and too much into specialization. And I'm not a doctor, for the record. You know that.
Well, y'all said we all had kids. You start them off in T-ball, and you're up there at the baseball park for 2 hours, and the kid does nothing but run around the bases one time. When they're out in the outfield, they won't go get a ball 10 yards from them. They don't know any better.
Yeah.
But the amount of standing around, of course, the uniforms cost about $300. You got to get them a bat. You got to get them. You go to the soccer field, and those kids are moving.
Nonstop.
And we didn't have it when I was growing up, so I never got related to it and just don't care for it.
Yeah.
Can't stand to watch it. Damn sure don't want to play it because you have to run too much.
Yeah.
But it's just something I couldn't relate to. But when I saw my kids coming up, I said, we got to keep encouraging them to play soccer and get out of this T-ball route we're on right now.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot of difference.
Well, I'll say this briefly. I look, I worked TV trucks, TV world forever. I did a lot of early MLS for the Colorado Rapids. I, as a replay guy, I didn't even know what offsides was at that moment. So let me tell you how much I didn't know. Okay, and we watch World Cup. It's a different brand, but I will say this: soccer is I think one or two most emerging sports in young players right now, or for young kids. And the onset of Messi and all these other guys, they're excited about it because they have access to watch it more often. And my daughter, I guess that they work hard. I mean, got end of the season, that she's pretty beat up. She's got a heel thing and she's got this thing and that thing. But you know what, Jake? I remember when we were getting yelled at for throwing curveballs and rotating too much this way, and that was a pitcher, or throwing too many pitches, or being out too much. So in a lot of ways, she's way like they're way smarter than I ever was at that age, for one, and for two, the girls' game or the women's game, or it's way more exciting to watch in soccer to me because they strategize way more.
Yeah.
It's more about team, and it's less about, like, I just want to kick the ball as hard as I can and get this other kid and run it. But I can see why the boys might trend out of it, but it's an emerging sport.
You get in incredible shape. Jake, I know you've got a hard out at 9. Let people know how they can follow you, and let's do this again next week, because always you come with your A game.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah, just follow me on X at Jake Wynn. We'll be on today 3 to 6 here in the great state of Mississippi on 105.9 The Zone and ESPN Radio here in the state. And guys, I appreciate it. Coach, good to see you. I hope you all have a great week.
You do too. Thanks.
Yeah,
and let me say too, Coach, before we wrap it up, Brendan's right. The more sports you can play, it's just your body just, there's a term, I know those TV infomercials called muscle confusion, but it is. I like to say when you're running about every 200, 300 yards, kick your heels up, left, right, left, about every 300 yards, because it keeps your body from patterning in on a run. And it's just good to shake things up. Also, just the mental part of it, like you say, some of the most grueling Saturday mornings we all experience with kids is when you go from T-ball to the kids are pitching, because it can take, 3 days later you're out there.
Now it's heading the soccer ball. Like Stella, this year they can head it, and now they went. This is how much I didn't know. This is embarrassing. Yeah. Coach, she says, Dad, the field's bigger this year. This is the end of the season, full year. I said, yeah, I know it's bigger. It's crazy bigger. I guess you guys just need more space. You guys really seem to be passing the ball more. She's like, yeah, well, it's a lot better than, the 7v7. I was like, you guys aren't 7v7? I was like, wait, how many players are on the field? She's like 11. I'm like, I didn't even know, what was going on. And this is 3 years into it, because it's just, you got to play this sport to get it, I think. It is fun to watch and exciting. But I'm with you, Coach. I need a little more scoring going. That's why I don't like hockey that much, even though I did a ton of hockey.
And softball for little kids is really slow, but you get it in college, it's exciting. I mean,
women's college,
yeah.
That's the best. And there's a lot of that. Don't they playing right now for the
SEC tournament is this week.
Tournament. Yeah, this week.
And Coach, listen, I'm with you. That Clemson LSU game, right now, that's about as good a matchup is we're going to have. And we got to wrap it up. We got to get going. But Coach, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. It means the world to us. And I get so many positive comments because your insight is invaluable. So thank you so much. And let me say something about
thanks, Coach.
Our sponsors, Winter Timber. We talked about them. Also Hewlett and Dunn. And then I want to say something about Landers Ford. It is a Monday. Get out there today. They're open 7 a.m., 7 p.m. Talk to Brad Bellamy, the general manager. If you're worried about tariffs and the cost of vehicles, talk to them. They're giving employee pricing to their customers coming in. Their service department will pick you up and take you around.
Vehicles, Rob.
Do what?
I'm still going to go out there and get me a truck or some sort of vehicle.
And they've got a huge inventory out there. Poplar and Houston Levy, where Memphis and Collierville meet, and they are open again every day except Sunday. If you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you probably paid too much. And right down the street from my good friends at Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, man, Audrey had on these boots at my grandson's birthday party.
I need boots. Saturday.
I know, and I've got to get an 11 and a half pair. I'm going to get you something other than wild boar because they never could. I guess they didn't make any more of them.
Why? There's so many feral hogs.
I know, but the boot people didn't make enough of them. But we got to get them for you. Gotcha. But let me say they're open Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m., 6 p.m. Huge selection of boots and everything that you want. And I'll just close out by saying, most often we see the face of Christ, at least among us. Think about that. Find ways to go out and help people and make a difference. Mother Teresa's right. We can all do something. We can't do everything, but we can all do something. For executive producer Brendan Martin, who is the best on the planet, watch this channel. You have no idea how hard this guy's working. It is worth it, man. If you're going to drink from the well, remember those who dug it, okay?
Drink from the water hose.
Yeah, the water hose. That's right.
That's what that.
The water hose. I
That
saw
was
that.
the comment that we had when we were
s-
talking about getting off our lawn.
get
Everybody
off
were
of my
pissed off about everything and
Well,
bring it back.
Yeah, but
It was
as a-
better when we were getting our
but-
houses
but as a
beat and
soccer
lighting
dad-
matches on fire and getting chased by
Yeah.
cops. That was
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, we were running. We were in shape, man. But
We
hey,
have to go.
y'all watch tonight, Buddy Martin show at 9. We'll see y'all tomorrow. I appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
All right, John Boy.